The autumn leaves crunched under my shoes as I stood frozen behind my mother's kitchen window. My 11-year-old son Tyler gripped my hand so tightly it hurt, but that pain was nothing compared to the sharp ache in my chest as I listened to the two people I trusted most destroy everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family. She's so broken. Helen, always crying, always needy. I can't do it anymore. Brandon's voice carried through the thin glass like a blade. My mother's laugh was sharp, almost mocking. I told you not to marry her, didn't I? Said she was too weak for a man like you. Too damaged. Her words struck like physical blows. My knees felt weak. Tyler looked up at me with confused eyes. He could sense something was wrong, though he didn't yet understand. I pressed my finger to my lips, telling him to stay quiet. Even as my world collapsed, the insurance money from her father's death made it worth it for a while. Brandon went on casually, as if discussing the weather. But now that it's nearly gone, I'm done pretending to be the caring husband to someone so pathetic. I gripped the windowsill to keep from falling. The insurance money, the same money I thought was for Tyler's future, was nothing but a tool he'd used to keep me in place. What will you do about it? My mother asked, her tone laced with interest. I'm leaving her. Taking everything. She's too weak to fight. She'll just cry and accept it, like always. Something inside me died, then the part that still believed in love, family, and trust, but in its place, something else took root, cold, strategic, determined to make sure Brandon and my mother learned exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose. I led Tyler away from the window and quietly toward the car. My mind was already working on a plan. They thought I was weak. They thought I was broken. Soon, they'd learn just how wrong they were. Before we go on, share in the comments which country you're watching from. We love knowing where our global audience is tuning in. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Your support helps us bring more powerful real-life revenge stories. 3 months earlier, I believed my life was perfect, or at least as perfect as it could be for someone like me. My name is Rebecca, and for most of my 32 years, I believed I didn't deserve the good things that happened to me. The morning that changed everything began like any other. Tuesday, I woke up in our cozy 3-bedroom home on Maple Street, the same house Brandon and I bought when Tyler was 2, the one I thought we'd grow old in together. Brandon was already showered, dressed in his blue work uniform. He managed a small construction company and had a good reputation in town. People respected him. Men wanted to be his friend. Women found him attractive. I never fully understood what he saw in me. "Morning, beautiful," he said, kissing my forehead as I shuffled into the kitchen in my old robe. "Coffee's ready," I smiled, my heart giving that familiar flutter it had since our first date 12 years ago. Despite everything we'd been through, I still felt lucky to be married to Brandon Miller. "Tyler up yet?" I asked, pouring coffee and adding the cream Brandon had set out for me. He always remembered small gestures like that, so I thought, still sleeping, I'll get him up soon. "Big job starts today at the Jackson place, so I might be late tonight." I nodded, used to his long hours. Construction in a small town like Riverside was unpredictable. "Mom called yesterday," I added. "She wants us to visit this weekend." For a brief second, something flickered in his eyes before disappearing. "Sure, whatever you want." Looking back, I should have noticed the shift in his tone, the way his jaw tightened, but I was just happy my husband and mother got along more, so I believed. Tyler entered the kitchen, hair sticking up, grabbing toast on the way. "Morning, Mom." "Morning, Dad." "Slow down," I laughed. "Breakfast isn't going anywhere." Brandon ruffled his hair. "Listen to your mom. She knows what she's talking about." His warm tone made my chest tighten with love. This was my family, my whole world. Without them, I was nothing. Or so I thought. Brandon left for work with his usual kiss. Tyler caught the bus. I spent the morning cleaning, doing laundry, then headed to my part-time job at the library. I loved it there. It was quiet, calm, and full of books that had shaped my life. Reading had been my refuge from my mother's constant criticism, showing me that other lives, other possibilities, existed. When I arrived, my supervisor, Mrs. Maverick, was shelving returns. "Good morning, Rebecca. You look well today." She was one of the few people who made me feel valued, kind-eyed, soft-spoken, like the grandmother I'd never had. The morning passed easily, helping a young mother find picture books, assisting an older man with genealogy, organizing new fiction. But then I overheard Mrs. Maverick speaking to another librarian, Janet. Saw Brandon Miller at the diner yesterday around noon, Janet said. With Helen Lacan looked pretty cozy. Helen Lacan, my mother. Really? Mrs. Maverick sounded surprised. I didn't know they knew each other that well. Oh, they do, Janet replied knowingly. My heart thudded. There could be an innocent reason. Maybe they'd run into each other. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me, but unease settled deep in my stomach. That night, Brandon came home late, saying he'd been on the Jackson job all day. But when I looked out the window, his truck was spotless, not a trace of dust or dirt. I lay awake beside him, telling myself I was imagining things, but once doubt takes root, it grows. Over the next weeks, life looked normal. On the surface Brandon worked, Tyler went to school, I went to the library, but I noticed changes. Brandon seemed distracted. He took his phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, and angled the screen away from me. He'd changed his PASSCODE. My mother also seemed unusually interested in Brandon's work, asking questions about projects I'd never mentioned to her. When I asked Brandon about it, he brushed it off, probably heard it around town. And while small towns are full of gossip, something still felt wrong. Then came the day everything shifted. A Thursday in early November. Tyler had a half day at school, and I'd taken the afternoon off to spend time with him. Can we visit Grandma Helen? He asked over grilled cheese. She'd always insisted on Grandma Helen instead of just Grandma, saying it sounded more sophisticated. I thought it sounded distant, but never argued. I'm not sure, honey. We should call first. But when I tried her house and cell, both went straight to voicemail. Maybe she's shopping, Tyler suggested. We could drive by and see if her car's there. Her house was 20 minutes away, the same one I grew up in, with the tidy garden and longtime neighbors. All right, I agreed. But if she's not home, we'll come back another day. The drive was peaceful, Tyler chatting about school and friends while I admired the autumn scenery. The autumn leaves were at their brightest, filling the streets with gold and crimson. But as we turned onto my mother's street, a chill went through me. Brandon's truck was parked in her driveway. I pulled over across the street, my hands trembling on the wheel. Tyler looked up from his handheld game, puzzled. Why did we stop? Isn't that Dad's truck? Yes, I managed to say. I scrambled for explanations. Maybe he was fixing something for my mother. Maybe the roof needed repair, or a pipe had burst. Maybe. Are we going in? Tyler asked. In a minute, I said. I just want to see what's going on. A knot tightened in my stomach. Every instinct told me not to go to the door, not to knock, not to let them know we were there. Quietly, we moved to the back of the house. I knew from childhood that you could hear kitchen conversations clearly from the backyard window. What I heard shattered me. She's so broken. Helen always crying, always needy. I can't do this anymore. Brandon's voice was heavy with frustration. I told you not to marry her, my mother said sharply, almost pleased. Too weak for a man like you. Too damaged. I gripped the windowsill until my knuckles whitened. Tyler's small hand tightened around mine. He understood more than an 11-year-old should. The insurance money from her father made it worth it for a while. Brandon went on. But now it's almost gone. I'm done pretending to care for someone so pathetic. My father had died 3 years earlier in a car accident, leaving me a substantial life insurance payout. Brandon and I had agreed to save it for Tyler's future, a financial safety net. What are you going to do? My mother asked, her voice almost eager. I'm leaving her. I'll take everything. She won't fight back. She never does. She just cry and accept it. They both laughed. When my mother pressed, maybe after the holidays. I don't want to ruin Tyler's Christmas. You're too soft, she said. She's been a disappointment from birth. Weak, just like her father. At least he had the decency to die and leave her some money. Something inside me didn't just break, it snapped. My father had been a gentleman who taught me I was worthy of love. My mother had spent my childhood tearing me down, telling me I wasn't enough. I had believed her, and I had spent my adult life grateful Brandon chose me. But now, I knew he had chosen the money, not me, and my mother had been preparing me to be too broken to resist. I walked back to the car unsteadily. Mom, are you okay? You look pale, Tyler asked. I'm fine, sweetie, I replied evenly. Change of plans, we're going home. But, what about Dad's truck? Dad's busy helping Grandma Helen. We'll see him at home. As Tyler chatted on the drive back, my mind was already planning. They thought I would accept whatever they did. They were wrong. That night, I faced myself in the mirror for the first time in years. The woman looking back was 32, but looked older. My hair was pulled back in the same ponytail I'd worn for years. No makeup. Brandon always said he preferred natural. My clothes were modest, practical. I looked exactly like someone who had spent her life trying to be small, quiet, and grateful for scraps of affection. But behind my eyes, something new was burning. Brandon came home at 11, kissed my cheek, and played the role of devoted husband. After he fell asleep, I went to the home office and opened the filing cabinet for cords Brandon had always handled because I was too emotional about money. What I found was worse than I imagined. Of the $150,000 meant for Tyler's future, nearly all was gone. $50,000 had been moved to an account I didn't recognize. $30,000 withdrawn in cash over 6 months. $20,000 supposedly for home improvements that never happened. $15,000 for business equipment. Thousands more on unexplained expenses. By dawn, I knew 3 things. Brandon had been stealing for months, preparing to leave. My mother had been involved from the start. Fund records showed frequent calls during times Brandon claimed to be working. They had gravely underestimated me. The next morning, I called in sick not because I was ill, but because I had work to do. After Brandon left for work and Tyler for school, I went to the bank where I'd been a customer for 12 years. The head teller greeted me warmly. I need to review all my accounts, I said. The $50,000 account belonged jointly to Brandon and my mother, opened 3 months ago. This is your signature authorizing the transfer, the manager said. I remember now. I lied smoothly. Just wanted to check the balance. I wasn't going to make this the bank's problem. I'd handle it myself. My next stop was the library, where I researched divorce law, asset division, and custody. I also looked into fraud and theft laws because taking money under false pretenses, even between spouses, is still theft if you can prove it. And by the time I picked Tyler up, I had the outline of a plan not just to recover my money, but to make them pay. My best weapon would be letting them believe I was still the helpless woman they thought I'd always been. How was school? I asked. Good. We learned how some colonists pretended to be loyal to Britain while planning to fight. That's very interesting, I said. Sometimes the best way to win is to let your enemies think they've already won. That night, I made Brandon's favorite dinner pot roast with potatoes and carrot sand, wore the red dress he'd once complimented. I laughed at his jokes, asked about his day. You seem happy, he said. I am, I replied, and it wasn't entirely a lie. I had a reason to get up in the morning. I was thinking, I added casually, maybe we should have my mother over for dinner this weekend. Something flickered in his eyes. That sounds great. I'm sure Helen would love that. Helen, not your mom. Not mom. Helen, like they were close. I'll call her tomorrow, I said. As Brandon slept that night, I mapped out the next phases: preparation, then execution, making sure they understood exactly what they lost when they underestimated me. The next morning, I called my mother. Mom, I said, letting my voice sound small, would you like to come for dinner Saturday night? Oh, sweetie, that sounds lovely, she replied, clearly satisfied. Is everything all right? You sound a bit down. I'm fine, I said with just enough false cheer. Maybe a little tired. Brandon's been working so much lately. Men work hard to provide for their families. Dear, you should be grateful, not complaining. The sharp edge in her voice was so familiar, I almost didn't notice it. But this time, instead of making me feel small, it only fed the cold fire inside me. You're right, of course. I just miss him, you know. Well, a good wife keeps herself busy instead of bothering her husband with constant neediness. You're absolutely right. I'll see you Saturday at 6. Perfect. Should I bring anything? Just yourself, Mom. That's all we need. After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen, amazed at how easily I could slip into the role they expected. The weak, grateful daughter, the needy wife. I'd played it for so long, I'd almost forgotten it was an act. But now, performing it deliberately, I could finally see the pattern. Every critique masked as advice. Every backhanded compliment meant to keep me grateful for scraps of attention. Every reminder that I was lucky just to be tolerated. The anger I felt was clean, sharp, and deliberate. My next stop was an office supply store, where I bought a small digital recorder like the ones students use for lectures. Then, at an electronics shop, I picked up a discreet wireless camera marketed for home security. If Brandon and my mother wanted private conversations, I was going to make sure every word was recorded. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I shopped for myself. Not plain clothes meant to blend in. Not the modest, safe outfits chosen to avoid attention. I bought a fitted black dress that actually showed my shape, makeup that made my eyes stand out, and heels that gave me height and confidence. The woman in the dressing room mirror looked like a stranger who might actually deserve something good in life. When I got home, I hid my purchases in the back of my closet and put my old Rebecca mask back on. Saturday came quickly. I spent the day cleaning and cooking, just like I'd done countless times before, except this time, I also set up my equipment. The camera went on the mantle disguised as decor. The recorder went in my pocket, already running. Brandon got home at 5:30, just in time to prepare before my mother arrived. "You look nice," he said, seeing me in simple slacks and a plain sweater. "Thank you," I replied with the same practiced smile. Like his approval was the most important thing in the world. My mother arrived at exactly 6, a bottle of wine in hand, wearing an outfit worth more than my annual clothing budget. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, and delivered her first strike with precision. "Rebecca, darling, you look tired. Are you getting enough sleep?" Criticism dressed as concern. "I'm fine, Mom. Just busy with Tyler and work." "Well, you know what they say, a woman's work is never done." She laughed, handing Brandon the wine. "Hello, Brandon. You look wonderful as always." The way she looked at him made my skin crawl. There was ownership in it. But I smiled, thanked her for the wine, and served dinner like nothing was wrong. The meal was torture. They exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't watching. Shared private jokes. Discussed things that were clearly old conversations. "Oh, Brandon," my mother said, "did you get that permit issue resolved with the city?" My blood ran cold. He'd never mentioned a permit problem to me. "Yeah, finally got it handled." "Thanks for asking. What permit issue?" I asked lightly. "Just work stuff, babe. Nothing to worry about." My mother nodded knowingly. After dinner, I went to get dessert. In the kitchen, I heard their voices, low, intimate. When I returned, they were sitting farther apart than before, like they'd quickly created distance. "This looks amazing, sweetheart," Brandon said, though his smile was tight. The rest of the night passed in fake smiles and polite small talk. My mother left around 9, hugging me again. "Thank you for a lovely evening, dear. We should do this more often." "Definitely. Family is important." After she left, Brandon helped with dishes. "Your mom seemed to enjoy herself," he said. "She did. I'm glad you two get along. She's a good woman. Raised you right." The lies rolled off his tongue effortlessly. That night, I lay awake beside him, planning my next move. I had recordings of their private talks, footage of their interactions, but I needed more. Proof of financial theft, proof of their affair, and most importantly, undeniable self-incrimination. The chance came sooner than I expected. That Wednesday, Brandon claimed he'd be working late on the Jackson job, but when I drove past the site at lunch, it was empty. That night, after Tyler was asleep, I drove to where he stored his equipment. No truck, no lights. Then I drove to my mother's house. His truck was in her driveway. I parked 2 blocks away, recorder in my pocket, phone ready for photos. The conversation I overheard ended all doubt. "When are you going to tell her?" my mother asked sharply. "After Christmas. I promised Tyler a good one." "You're too soft. She doesn't deserve it." "I have to think about my son. He'll be better off without her." "You both will." A pause, then Brandon's voice. "Softer? Sometimes I think about what life could have been if I'd chosen you from the start." My mother laughed, pleased. "Better late than never. Once you're free of her, we can finally be together." It hit me. This wasn't just about convenience. They'd been in love all along. "Have you figured out how to get the rest of the money?" she asked. "Most is already in our account. She signs whatever I give her. The house will take more work. I've been forging her signature on refinancing forms. By the time I file for divorce, there'll be nothing left for her to fight over. What about Tyler? I'll get custody. Who'd give a kid to a woman with a history of depression and instability? She has a history of that. She will. Once my lawyer's done building the case, suddenly, everything made sense. The therapist visits he pushed, the documented outbursts, the paper trail framing me as unfit. I recorded 20 more minutes, evidence of their plan to destroy me, take my child, and drain my finances. By the time I slipped away, I had enough to ruin them both. The next morning, I made 3 calls. First, to a divorce lawyer in another town, someone with no local ties. I need to document spousal financial fraud and prepare for divorce. Absolute confidentiality. She agreed to meet that afternoon. Second, to a private investigator who specialized in infidelity and financial crimes. Third, to my bank, not my usual contact, but his supervisor, Carol Stevens, who handled fraud. I believe my husband's been forging my signature. I need proof without him knowing. By Thursday afternoon, I had it all. A paper trail of financial crimes. Photos of him at my mother's when he claimed to be at work. Recordings of their affair, and a court-ordered freeze on our accounts set for the moment I filed. But I still wasn't ready. I wanted them to dig deeper. Friday night, I cooked his favorite meal, wearing my new black dress and makeup. Wow, you look incredible. What's the occasion? Do I need a reason to look nice for my husband? I asked, with a smile that would have been genuine weeks ago. Over dinner, I dropped the line that drained the color from his face. I was thinking, maybe we should take a Christmas vacation, somewhere warm. Tyler's never seen the ocean. That sounds costly, Brandon said cautiously. Oh, I don't think money will be an issue. I spoke with my father's insurance company today. They mentioned there could be extra benefits. I wasn't aware of something about compound interest on delayed payouts. The lie came out so naturally it surprised me, and Brandon's reaction was immediate. He nearly choked on his wine. Really, how much are we talking? They're not sure yet. Possibly another 50,000, maybe more. They'll confirm next week. His expression shifted, first surprise, then greed, then calculation, ending with something close to panic. That's wonderful, sweetheart, truly wonderful. But I could tell his mind was racing. If there was more insurance money, he'd want access to it before leaving, me meaning he'd delay his exit, giving me more time to plan my final move. That night, after Brandon fell asleep, I heard him get up around 2 a.m. I quietly listened through the crack in our bedroom door as he made a phone call from the kitchen. Helen, yeah, it's me. We have a problem. I crept to the top of the stairs, recording device ready. She says more insurance money is coming. Another 50 grand? No, I don't think she suspects anything. She's too clueless to figure it out. We may need to wait longer than planned. I know, but if we move too fast, we risk missing that money. His voice faded as he walked deeper into the kitchen. That was enough. They planned to postpone ruining me so they could take even more money that didn't exist. Perfect. The next 2 weeks were the most challenging of my life, not because of Brandon and my mother's betrayal, but because I had to keep playing the part they expected. Weak, grateful, compliant. Every morning, I put on the mask of the old Rebecca, humble, anxious, eager for any attention. I cooked his favorite meals, asked about his day as though I cared, and made sure Tyler sensed nothing unusual. But underneath, I was different. I spent lunch breaks meeting with lawyers and investigators, documenting every lie, theft, and manipulation. I built an airtight case that no judge could ignore, ensuring Brandon would walk away with neither my money nor my son. Mike Torres, a former detective and my private investigator, was especially helpful. In 30 years, I've never seen such thorough documentation, he told me. Your husband's not just cheating and stealing, he's left a paper trail proving criminal intent. What charges could he face? I asked. Fraud, embezzlement, forgery. If the prosecutor pushes it 5 to 10 years in prison. I felt no guilt. This was the father of my child. A man I'd loved for 12 years, but all I felt was cold satisfaction. Meanwhile, Brandon grew increasingly uneasy. The non-existent insurance payout was processing, and he kept asking for updates. These things take time, I'd say, but it'll be worth the wait. My mother grew restless, to calling often, casually asking about the money. Any word from the insurance company, dear? Not yet, Mom, but hopefully soon. If only she knew how true that was, I thought. The turning point came on a Thursday in early December. Brandon claimed he'd be working late again. The Jackson job's behind schedule, might have to work all weekend. But earlier that day, I'd driven past the Jackson house. It was finished. The family had already moved in. That night, I followed him. Instead of heading to my mother's, he went to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, the kind people choose when they want privacy. My mother's car was already there. I parked across the street and waited. Through the window of room 237, I saw two figures moving. I didn't need details. The private investigator had given me a camera with a telephoto lens. I photographed everything. Brandon's truck, my mother's car, the timestamp showing it was 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday when he claimed to be working. When they finally left, they were relaxed, comfortable. Brandon had his arm around her waist. She looked at him with clear affection. They moved like a couple who'd been together for years. I uploaded the photos to the encrypted folder Torres had set up. When Brandon came home at midnight, I greeted him with tea and a concerned expression. "Long day?" I asked. "Exhausting, but we're making progress." "That's good. I worry about you working so hard." He kissed the top of my head. I resisted the urge to pull away. "You're too good to me, Rebecca." If only he knew. The next morning, I made the call I'd been preparing for weeks. "Daisy, it's Rebecca Miller. I'm ready to file." "Are you certain? Once we start, there's no going back." "I'm sure." "File today on freeze the accounts immediately." "Done. Can you be here by 2 p.m.? Before leaving, I made one final call to the construction company Brandon claimed to work for. "Can I speak with the foreman on the Jackson job?" Confused, the man replied, "That job wrapped up 2 weeks ago since mid-November." "I see. My husband, Brandon Miller, said he was working there. We've had no jobs this week. Slow season." Everything clicked. Brandon didn't just work for a construction company. He owned a small one, struggling for months. Instead of telling me, he'd faked steady work while stealing from me and plotting his exit. At 2 p.m., I sat in attorney Daisy Walsh's office and signed the papers that would end his life as he knew it. "The account freeze takes effect at close of business," she explained. "He won't access joint accounts or funds move to your mother's account and the house. With proof, he forged your signature. The refinancing is void. The house stays in your name, in custody of Tyler. Given the fraud and psychological manipulation you've documented, custody will almost certainly remain with you. At best, he'll have supervised visitation. What happens next? He'll be served tomorrow morning. I recommend you not be home. Tyler somewhere safe, and criminal charges. That's your choice. The DA would prosecute with this evidence." I thought about his plan to frame me as unstable, my mother's cruelty, and their years of lies. "Press charges," I said. "All of them." That evening, I played my role one last time, making dinner, helping Tyler with homework, pretending life was normal. Brandon seemed distracted, still fixated on the fictional insurance payout. After Tyler was asleep, we sat on the couch. "I love our life," I said, leaning on him. "Me too, babe, me too." The lie slipped easily from his lips. But tomorrow, he'd learn what happened to those who underestimated Rebecca Miller. I woke before dawn Friday, feeling a childlike anticipation. This was the day everything shifted. I made Tyler breakfast and took him to school. Brandon had already left for his job, likely to my mother's. "I love you so much, sweetheart," I told Tyler, hugging him longer than usual. "I love you too, Mom. You seem different lately." "Smart boy." "I'm fine, better than fine. Everything's going to be okay." After dropping him off, I went to a coffee shop across town. Daisy had texted. The process server would deliver papers between 9 and 10 a.m. At 9:47, my phone rang. Double quotes, "Mrs. Miller, this is Officer Johnson with Riverside PD. Your husband asked us to call you." My pulse quickened, but my tone stayed calm. "Is everything all right, officer?" "Well, ma'am, your husband was served this morning. He's upset and making serious accusations about you. Says you've been acting erratically, lying about insurance money, and manipulating him. Concerned about your mental state." I nearly laughed. Even now, with everything collapsing, he played the concerned husband act. "Officer Johnson, you should know those papers are divorce filings, because I discovered my husband has been stealing from our accounts and having an affair with my mother, Apazio mother. Yes, I have full documentation of both the financial fraud and the affair. I can provide it any time. Ma'am, would you be willing to come to the station to give a statement?" "Of course, I'll be right there." "That sounds expensive," Brandon said cautiously. "Oh, I don't think money will be an issue," I replied. "I spoke with my dad's insurance company today, and they mentioned there might be extra benefits. I wasn't aware of something about compound interest on delayed payouts." The lie slipped out so naturally it even surprised me, but the effect on Brandon was instant. He nearly choked on his wine. "Really? How much are we talking about?" "They're not certain yet. Could be another 50,000, maybe more. They'll call me next week with the final numbers. Brandon's face went through a range of emotions: surprise, greed, calculation, and finally, something close to panic. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Really wonderful. I could see the gears turning in his head. If more insurance money was coming, he'd want to grab it before leaving me. That meant delaying his plan, which meant I had more time to set up my own. That night, after Brandon fell asleep, I heard him get up around 2 a.m. I listened from the bedroom doorway as he made a phone call from the kitchen. Helen? Yeah, it's me. We have a problem. She says there's more insurance money coming. Another 50 grand. No, I don't think she suspects anything. She's too clueless to put it together. We might have to wait longer than planned. I know, but if we move too fast, we'll miss that money. His voice faded as he moved farther into the kitchen. I'd heard enough. They were postponing my destruction to try to steal more money that didn't exist. Perfect. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life, not because of what Brandon and my mother were doing, but because I had to keep up the act. I played the weak, grateful woman they expected, all while preparing to end them both. Each morning, I put on the mask of old Rebecca, humble, anxious, thankful for any scrap of attention. I cooked Brandon's favorite meals, asked about his day, and kept Tyler unaware. Underneath, I was a different woman. I spent my lunch breaks with lawyers and investigators, gathering proof: every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I built a case so solid that no judge would let Brandon take my money or my son. The private investigator, a retired detective named Mike Torres, was invaluable. In 30 years, I've never seen documentation this detailed. He told me, your husband isn't just cheating and stealing, he's left a trail that shows criminal intent. What charges could he face? I asked. Fraud, embezzlement, forgery. If the prosecutor pushes it, 5 to 10 years in prison. I should have felt guilty. This was Tyler's father, my husband of 12 years, but all I felt was cold satisfaction. Brandon was getting jumpy. The made-up insurance payout was supposedly in process, and he kept asking when I'd hear back. These things take time, I'd say, but they told me it'll be worth the wait. My mother grew impatient too, calling often with thinly disguised questions. Any news from the insurance company, dear? Not yet, Mom, but hopefully soon. She'd tell me, well, good things come to those who wait. If only she knew how true that was about to be. My opportunity came on a Thursday in early December. Brandon claimed he had to work late again. The Jackson job's behind schedule. Might have to work the weekend, he said. But that afternoon, I'd driven past the Jackson house. It was finished, and the family had already moved in. That night, I followed him. Instead of heading to my mother's, he drove to a motel on the edge of town, the kind where people went to avoid being seen. My mother's car was already in the lot. I parked across the street and waited. Through the window of room 237, I saw 2 figures moving. I didn't need details. The investigator had given me a camera with a telephoto lens. I photographed Brandon's truck, my mother's car, the timestamp, 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday, when he was supposedly working. When they left the room, they were relaxed, familiar. Brandon's arm around her waist, her laughing at something he said, looking up at him with affection. They looked like a couple who'd been together for a while. I photographed everything, then uploaded it to the investigator's encrypted folder. When Brandon came home at midnight, I greeted him with tea and concern. Long day, I asked. Exhausting, but we're making progress. That's good. I worry about you working so hard. You're too good to me, Rebecca. If he only knew. The next morning, I made the call I'd been planning. Daisy, it's Rebecca. Miller, I'm ready to file. Are you sure? Once we start, there's no going back, I'm sure. File today, and freeze the accounts immediately. Before leaving for the lawyer's office, I called the construction company Brandon supposedly worked for. Jackson job. The foreman said, puzzled. That finished 2 weeks ago, mid-November. We don't have anything running now. Slow season. The last piece clicked. Brandon owned a small construction business, but work had been slow. Instead of telling me, he pretended to have steady jobs while stealing from me and plotting his escape. At 2 p.m., I signed papers that would destroy him. The account freeze starts at close of business, Daisy said. He can't touch the joint accounts or the money he moved to your mother. As for the house, since you can prove he forged your signature on the refinancing, it stays in your name and custody of Tyler. With this evidence of fraud and manipulation, he's unlikely to get custody. maybe supervised visits. And criminal charges, that's up to you. The DA would prosecute. I thought about his plan to paint me as unstable to take my child, my mother's cruelty, the years of lies, press charges, I said, all of them. That night, I played my role one last time, made dinner, helped Tyler with homework, watched TV with Brandon. I love our life, I told him, curling up beside him. Me too, babe, me too. Tomorrow, he'd learn what happened when you underestimated Rebecca Miller. Friday morning, I woke early, feeling something I hadn't in years, anticipation. Brandon had already left for his job, which likely meant my mother's house. I took Tyler to school, hugging him extra tight. I love you so much, sweetheart. I love you too, Mom. Are you okay? You seem different lately. I'm fine. Better than fine. Everything's going to be okay. After dropping him off, I waited at a coffee shop. The process server would deliver the papers between 9 and 10 a.m. At 9:47, my phone rang. Double quotes, Mrs. Miller. Officer Johnson, Riverside Police. Your husband asked us to call. Is everything all right, officer? He was served legal papers this morning and, well, he's upset. He's making accusations, says you've been acting erratically, lying about insurance money, and manipulating him. He's concerned about your mental health. Even now, he was playing the worried husband act. Officer, those papers are for divorce because my husband has been stealing from our joint accounts and having an affair with my mother. A pause. Your mother. Yes, I have detailed proof of both the financial crimes and the affair. I'm happy to provide it, ma'am. Would you be willing to come to the station to make a statement? Of course, I'll be right there.